Hello, everyone. It's Charlton. Please subscribe to my channel, tap the notification bell, and like this video. That helps me to keep making videos, and I would appreciate it majorly. So there's an article that's been out there for a couple days now, about Oliver North. Um, well, a leaked memo and a letter. There's a couple different documents that don't seem to be publicly out there anymore. They're probably somewhere, but in one place, this guy had a link to something here from the Free Beacon, which is where it originated, I think. Or they were the first to publicly kind of scoop it up and display it, but it's not there anymore. But the contents of the memos in the letter, which was sent to, I think, the NRA board after Oliver North left the NRA, and some other individual whose name is Childress, who's a famous former NASCAR driver, and has his own team now as well. And I think he's a fairly wealthy businessman and probably a big proponent of gun rights. Richard Childress is his name. That's the dude right there. So there's a lot of different things going on here. I don't know how much I want to go into this, and I'm generally pro NRA. I don't think I've ever really been opposed to anything that they've stood for the most part. I don't own a gun. I've never have, and but I do believe in gun right ownership, definitely. And I don't think just for hunting and so forth. I do think that the reason the right to bear arms exists is so that the existing government couldn't take over the people. That's why it originally was put in place, not for hunting rights. Okay, so I believe in the concept, definitely. The thing that struck me about this whole situation is Oliver North, being pushed out. He had brought up some things. Wayne LaPierre, at least from his perspective, made it sound like he was trying to extort Wayne LaPierre into stepping down, and maybe he would take his position. Is that what the political play was? Maybe. But my overall impression of Oliver North, and I don't know the man personally, but my overall impression is that he's a good guy, like a real good guy. And that's basically one of the things that people, his integrity and just being a fairly good person, fairly reasonable, nice person, that's one of the things that attracted people to him. Going back to Iran and Contra, where he became a national figure, and he actually, I think, helped salvage that big mess that was for Reagan. I don't even know all the particulars of that. Doesn't matter here. My point is that he's a good guy, and that's my impression. And nobody stood up for him. And all these people who are his friends, Hannity, nobody said Hannity didn't say Jack. Neither did Trump, and it just sort of it's just the new way of where it doesn't matter if you're a good guy. It's just a matter of I don't know what it is. It's just not a good thing. And this is just again the same thing about that I don't like about Trump, where Trump determines what the path is, and then nobody speaks up in opposition to that because they're all scared to death of him. And it's just pitiful. So, but some of the things that seem to be going on at the NRA, and there are other things too. There are several stories going back to 2015, 16, maybe beyond, of sort of Russia infiltrating the NRA, and they're not fantasies. They're real, because Russia just saw it as a perfect opportunity to infiltrate the politics of America, of Republican politics by, being pro-gun, and getting into that organization. There's plenty there. That's not what I'm talking about with this, but that's that's a factor when we're talking about Trump, man. Everywhere he goes, that seems to come up, man. It's not good. So, one of the things he points out is the legal bills by a particular law firm, Brewer, His name is Bill Brewer. The attorney is right there, based out of Dallas. He's just like a very hard charging, extremely aggressive, very good attorney that represents the NRA probably on a number of many different cases in the NRA's legal circumstances. They're being sued, all the time. So it's not absolutely extraordinary, some of the things that he points out, but they are pretty big. I mean, basically that law firm, I think that the dollar total that they billed out to that Bill Brewer's law firm for the previous year was $24 million. And when you do the math, it comes to like $100,000 a day that law firm was booking with the NRA, and Oliver North was calling into question whether or not those dollars were being spent, as prudently as they could be, and it seemed fairly excessive. And why are we paying such high legal bills to one particular law firm? Bill Brewer obviously defended it, naturally. And but there were other things. So let me just kind of quickly cruise through some of this. Then because there was, I think that was in the letter, but then there were other things linked in some of the previous expenses of the NRA in particular. It all goes, the person at the top is who they look to for answers, on some of the travel expenses, spending on things like clothes and stuff like that at least on the surface seem extremely, excessive. That's mentioned over at the Daily Mail and other places, I guess the Wall Street Journal as well, but I'll use the Daily Mail as quickly as I can. My point, my number one point was that nobody stuck up for Oliver North, who, in Republican politics is usually looked at in the highest esteem. Nobody said nothing, and I'm sorry, even though Wayne LaPierre he's a war hero, and former Reagan, the colonel who basically handled, it was the public face of the Iran-Contra mess during the Reagan administration, which was a huge deal, and managed to turn it around because the public liked him, And so when you just compare him to Wayne LaPierre, who I don't even know, I looked up his history on Wikipedia, and there's nothing particularly, there's not a lot on the page to begin with. It's just, it's kind of remarkable, but because the NRA is such a powerful organization and LaPierre seems to, he's at the head of it, Oliver North was totally expendable. But just again, not a word. You didn't hear Hannity say nothing. He used to have a show on Fox. He used to be a mainstay on Fox. He used to have like a War Stories that was on like Saturdays or Sundays. But he was a regular guest. Regular segments with him appearing all the time. So, but nobody said nothing, and it's just pretty pitiful if you ask me. So, the NRA has racked up some huge legal bills over the last year that threaten to debilitate the organization, according to documents posted anonymously online that appear to be written by the group's ex-president, Oliver North. The bills highlight the organization's extraordinary legal challenges. A person close to the matter confirmed the authenticity of the documents to the Daily Beast. Stephen Gutowski of the Washington Free Beacon was the first reporter to flag the documents. That's that Twitter page that I was just showing you. And again, they don't exist anymore. Or at least they're not. I mean, they're not up there publicly anymore, whatever that link to Facebook was. The documents include a confidential memo that North and NRA official Richard Childress sent to the NRA's General Counsel and Audit Committee Chairman, dated April 18th, 2019. The week before North was dramatically deposed as NRA president, the NRA suspended its board's longtime lawyer. At the same time, another lawyer was basically fired who had been the board's lawyer for many, many years, was released around the same time as Oliver North. I assume that he was supporting Oliver North's, criticism of the high legal bills that they were paying to this one particular law firm headed by Bill Brewer. I assume. I don't know that for a fact. In the memo, North claimed to be deeply concerned about the extraordinary legal fees the NRA has incurred from outside attorney Bill Brewer. North and Childress then called for an independent review of Brewer's invoices. Brewer has defended his fees in the past, telling the Wall Street Journal, "We're a premium law firm. We make no bones about that." Lawyers for North did not immediately respond for a request for comment. Childress declined to comment. The Brewer invoices are draining NRA cash at a mind-boggling speed, North and Childress wrote, adding that the fees pose an existential threat to the financial stability of the NRA. This is a fiscal emergency, they continued, yet we have been unable to get management to engage an outside independent review to ensure these bills are necessary and reasonable. There's nothing that extraordinary in that kind of request. I mean, I don't know why that would cause, him to be asked to leave. I mean, why wouldn't they just go through the review? And if everything's on the up and up, the review would show that, And again, this is Oliver North. The memo says Brewer charged the NRA $24 million since they engaged him last year, and that some of that had been reimbursed as part of a settlement of litigation against an insurance company, leaving the NRA to pay $18.5 million. North and Childress estimated that at the current rate, the NRA is racking up nearly $100,000 in legal bills every day, an eye-popping number. $97,000 a day is a stunning amount of money for an organization to pay, they wrote. It cries for an outside independent review. They also wrote that they made multiple requests for an outside review of the bills, including two of CEO Wayne LaPierre, who refused to order such an audit. If the bills are reasonable and properly documented, why the refusal to conduct an independent review, they wrote. I agree. I mean, I don't see what the big deal is. They also said that Brewer's firm's engagement letter is inconsistent with industry standards, claimed the NRA doesn't properly manage the firm's work, questioned why the firm did not give the NRA a nonprofit discount, and claimed Brewer personally worked to stop an outside review. The two top NRA officials pushed back against the memo's claims in a statement to the Daily Beast. The memo on Brewer's firm's legal fees is inaccurate. It reflects a misinformed view of the firm, its billings, and its advocacy for the NRA. Charles Cotton, the first vice president and chairman of the NRA's audit committee, naturally, the board supports the work the firm is doing, the results achieved, and the value of its services. Importantly, this relationship has been reviewed, vetted, and approved. The group's new president, Carolyn Meadows, she's right there. She was in the news recently because she's from Georgia. She had said of a congresswoman who won in a district that's heavily Republican, as I understand it, that the only reason she won was because she was an ethnic minority, an African American woman, and I don't know if she walked that back. I think she may have, but either way, she said this is stale news being recycled by those with personal agendas. She said in a statement, in any event, the entire board is fully aware of these issues. We have full confidence in Wayne LaPierre and the work he's doing in support of the NRA and its members. It's troubling and a bit pathetic that some people would resort to leaking information to advance their agendas. This has no bearing on the board's support of Wayne and the work the NRA does to protect America's constitutional freedoms. And it's funny, he's a Vietnam veteran. He's a war hero, for goodness sake. Oliver North. And when I looked up Wayne LaPierre's, I mean, I made the connection now, and I wasn't even going to bring this up, but it says this is Wayne LaPierre, despite a draft number 097, which I have no idea what that means, that placed him in the most likely to be drafted category of 1970. He avoided military service during the Vietnam War. Whereas Oliver North is a war hero, but he's being called, a bit pathetic by the person who became president after him, Carolyn Meadows, and nobody's saying a thing about Oliver North. It's pretty weak. It is weak. It's not pretty. It's totally weak. It goes on. And I was curious. I mean, they have 5 million members. I was curious exactly like what their kind of balance sheet and their income statement looks like how much they take in each year. And they have 5 million members, and the majority of their money that comes in annually doesn't come from them. It actually comes just from donations, some of them extremely large. There was an article here that sort of gives you an idea, and it varies from year to year depending on the political cycle and so forth. It can have very large swings. I mean, typically in like presidential election type year, it'll have huge, lots of money coming in, whereas that'll drop off significantly after the election, etc. So there, big changes don't necessarily indicate something, but the group's contributions declined as well from 124 million to 198 million. I don't really care about the decline. I think 124 million was 2018 because that's what this article is talking about, and they had a $55 million deficit, I believe. The National Rifle Association in 2018. I think the National Rifle Association of America experienced $55 million deficit in income last year. So that would be 2017 because this is 2018, I guess. I'm just trying to get an idea of how much money they bring in annually and like what their net worth is. When I just search net worth, like when you do with a lot of these political groups, political action committees, it usually comes right up. It didn't for the NRA, and I had to search and kind of do some just digging to figure it, just to understand it. They're not trying to hide it. That's not what I'm saying. So, but in 2017, I'm sorry. So, I guess 2017 would have been 98 million. 2016 would have been 124 million in terms of the money that came in. All right. And actually one contribution made up 19.2 million in 2016. So of that 124 million, 20 million of it nearly came from one single contribution. So like I said, the 5 million members don't really make up the majority of the income. He makes 1.4 million, Wayne LaPierre, which I don't think is actually, I would say, that might be a little on the high side, but for an organization that large, 5 million members, it's probably not that excessive. But it's maybe a little. The staff at the NRA can't be, what's the staff at the NRA? I don't know. How many people work at the NRA? A couple hundred? Yeah, 1.4 million is a little high. It is. I don't have time for this. It has 5 billion members. It's not going to tell me. Okay, I don't know. All right, so where was I? About the other expenses. That's covered over at the last 2 years have presented extraordinary challenges to the NRA, both from inside and out. After the election of President Donald Trump, donations to the association took a nosedive. The group brought in $55 million less in 2017 than it did in 2016. That's what I was just talking about. Meanwhile, the conviction of Russian national Maria Butina for conspiring to act as a covert agent by befriending top NRA bigwigs put extraordinary pressure on the group, working with Alexander Torshin, then an official with Russia's powerful central bank and now a target of U.S. sanction. Butina built deep connections with people close to the group and helped arrange a visit from some of their top officials to Moscow in December of 2015. Some former NRA, I think the former president of the NRA went to Moscow. I'm almost positive. I'm nearly positive. The NRA visitors hobnobbed with powerful Kremlin officials. Butina's activities drew media scrutiny, and the Senate Intelligence Committee started an investigation. The NRA has turned over reams of documents to the committee, etc. I don't want to belabor the point. I mean, you see where I'm coming from, and then this goes over the various expenses, which, some of these things can be cherry picked, and they go back in time to 2012, 2013, but some expenses that really stood out, where you had $39,000 for a day of shopping at a luxury Beverly Hills shop, and travel expenses in 1 month that amounted to $200,000, I believe. In late 2012 and 2013, LaPierre allegedly spent more than $200,000 in air transportation costs over a 1 month period, which included a 2-week trip to the Bahamas over Christmas. It is troubling and pathetic that some people would resort to leaking information to advance their agendas. That's Carolyn Meadows, the new president of the NRA. The NRA has previously said travel expenses were for donor outreach, fundraising, and stakeholder engagements, with clothing expenses down to his public appearances. That's addressing those. Between 2004 and 2017, the bill totaled $274,000, with 2 visits hitting $39,000 alone. This is a letter said to be from Ackerman McQueen to LaPierre said, "We need to address your wardrobe you required us to provide, specifically purchases at Zegna store in Beverly Hills, California." So that's for clothing, totaling $274,000. But that's over the course of 13 years. But on two visits, it actually was $39,000 on the single visit in two instances. LaPierre's disclosed compensation in 2017. The most recently reported year was $1.4 million. Stays at luxury hotel. Luxury hotel stays are said to have included $6,500 at the Four Seasons, $2,400 at a resort in Italy's Lake Como, $17,550 for air charter between Budapest and Italy. It also shows $18,300 for a car and a driver in both countries, and requests for the agency to cover it $13,800 in rent for a summer intern. There's definitely some excesses. That happens at these huge organizations. LaPierre is said to have claimed almost $40,000 in air transportation charges from Washington to the Bahamas in December 2012. All right, well, that's pretty much the story there. My overarching point was the one I opened with, was that my overall impression was that Oliver North was a good guy. And I don't think I've heard a single Republican voice, not on television, not Trump or anybody, stand up for him. And I think it sucks, man. I think it's it's just and it's why I'm sick of this stuff. Some of this stuff, everyone's so scared of Trump, and whatever Trump says, they're all petrified of him. It's totally not good. And that's the story there, man. Thanks for watching my videos. Please subscribe to my channel. Give me a like down below. I'll see you in the next video. Later, man.